She was just my aunt. Until the night she looked at me like I wasn't family anymore. That drive home changed everything. I never thought a glance could feel like a touch, until that night. The music from the party was fading behind us, muffled by the thick summer air. Everyone was laughing, drunk on nostalgia and cheap champagne. My aunt, Elena, had been quieter than usual, smiling politely, her fingers wrapped around a half-empty glass, her lipstick slightly smudged like she'd stopped caring halfway through the evening. When she asked me to drive her home, it sounded innocent. It should have been. She sat in the passenger seat, her bare shoulders catching the glow from the passing streetlights. The silence between us wasn't awkward, it was loaded, heavy, like there were words floating around the car, afraid to land. I cleared my throat. "You okay?" She nodded, eyes fixed on the window. "Just tired," she said softly. Then after a pause, "You've grown up." It wasn't what she said, it was how she said it. Like she'd only just noticed. Like it startled her. The air conditioner hummed. The scent of her perfume, something floral, faint, older, filled the space between us. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, trying not to think about how her knee brushed mine when we went over a bump. She noticed too. I saw her shift slightly, but she didn't move away. The drive should have taken 15 minutes, but neither of us seemed to be in a hurry. Every red light lingered too long, every turn too slow. When I finally parked in front of her house, she didn't get out right away. She sat there, looking at her porch light. Then she turned toward me, and for the first time all night, our eyes met fully. "Thank you," she said, voice lower now, "for driving me." "It's no problem," I managed. She smiled faintly, but there was something unsteady in it. "You always say that. No problem, even when there is." I didn't know what she meant, but her gaze didn't break. There was a strange, quiet ache between us, like we'd both stepped into something we couldn't explain. Her hand brushed mine as she reached for her purse. Just a second too long. Enough for my chest to tighten. Enough to know she'd felt it too. "Elena," I said before I could stop myself. "You shouldn't." She looked at me then. Really looked. Eyes soft, unreadable. "Shouldn't what?" My throat went dry. I wanted to say look at me like that. I wanted to say keep doing it. But instead, I just exhaled and looked away. She laughed quietly, not mocking, more like she understood. "You're too serious sometimes. And you're not serious enough," I said before I could take it back. That made her pause. Then she smiled again, smaller this time. "Maybe that's why we get along." The car fell silent. The porch light flickered. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. It felt like the world had stopped to listen. She leaned back in her seat, watching me in the dim light. Her eyes traced my face like she was memorizing it. Then, with a voice barely above a whisper, she said, "You remind me of someone I used to love." Before I could respond, her phone buzzed. A text lit up the dark screen, just one name, Michael. She looked at it, then turned the screen over, face down. "Would you walk me to the door?" she asked. I nodded, heart thudding too fast. When we stepped out of the car, the night was quiet. Only the soft chirp of crickets and the sound of our footsteps on the driveway. She fumbled with her keys, hands trembling slightly. Then she looked back at me, her expression unreadable but full of something that made the air feel heavier. And just as she turned the key in the lock, the porch light went out. The porch light never came back on. We stood there in the dark, just shadows against the soft hum of the night. She fumbled with the key again and sighed. "This old switch never works," she muttered, voice shaky in a way I hadn't heard before. I reached out without thinking, covering her hand with mine. "Let me try." Her hand stilled under mine, warm, small, and trembling slightly. For a second, neither of us moved. I could feel her pulse through her skin. She stepped back, letting me take the key, but not before her eyes lingered on my face a little too long. The lock clicked open, and she exhaled, whispering, "You always fix things, don't you?" I followed her inside. The house smelled like lavender and something faintly nostalgic, old books, candle wax, and loneliness. She slipped off her heels by the door, wincing softly. "God, these shoes. I keep pretending I'm still 25. I smiled. "You still look it." The words came out before I could stop them. She froze, then looked at me. Really looked. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was dangerous. "I used to be married, you know," she said finally, walking toward the kitchen. 15 years. Ended badly. I nodded, unsure what to say. She opened the fridge, poured herself a glass of water. Her reflection in the window looked softer than I remembered, the kind of beauty that had learned to survive disappointment. He wasn't a bad man, she continued. Just tired of me being tired. I stopped trying. We both did. She turned then, leaning against the counter. You ever been in love, Arjun? The way she said my name, slow, familiar, made my heart tighten. Once, I said. Didn't end well either. She smiled faintly. At least you tried, young. I waited too long. I wanted to ask her what that meant, but she looked away, eyes glinting with something I couldn't read. There was a framed photo on the shelf, her with my mother, years ago. I remembered visiting during summers, watching her read in the garden while everyone else laughed inside. She'd always seemed so unreachable then, too composed, too sure of herself. Now, seeing her like this, I realized she wasn't untouchable. She was just lonely. The thought scared me. She brushed past me to grab a blanket from the couch, and her shoulder grazed my arm. Just a touch, light as breath, but it sent a shiver straight through me. She noticed. Her lips parted like she might say something, then didn't. Instead, she said softly, You should go. It's late. I nodded, but neither of us moved. Her hand lifted slightly, hesitating, before brushing an invisible thread from my sleeve. A tiny, meaningless gesture, except it wasn't. For a moment, she held it there, her fingers resting against my arm. The air between us thickened. Then she whispered, Thank you for tonight, and stepped back, but her eyes stayed on me long after her words faded. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, standing in that soft darkness, her hand on my arm, her breath caught between words she never said. I told myself it was just a moment, that I'd imagined it. But by morning, my chest still felt heavy, like her touch hadn't faded. I tried to distract myself, gym, errands, anything, but my phone buzzed around noon. Elena, can you stop by later? The lock's acting up again. My stomach turned. I stared at the message longer than I should have. There were 100 locksmiths she could have called. But she called me. When I got there, she was in the garden, barefoot, sunlight tangled in her hair. She looked nothing like last night. No makeup, just a white shirt half tucked into jeans. Still, there was something in her eyes when she saw me. You didn't have to come, she said, though her smile betrayed her. I was nearby, I lied. We both knew I wasn't. Inside, the house was warmer, lived in. She handed me a cup of coffee, her fingers brushing mine again. Too casual to mean nothing, too long to mean nothing else. I worked on the lock, but her presence behind me was impossible to ignore. The faint sound of her sipping coffee, the way she leaned against the wall, watching, not saying much. When I turned around, she was closer than I expected. Fixed, I said, forcing a smile. She nodded. You really are good at fixing things. There was something unspoken in her tone again, like she wasn't talking about locks. Before I could reply, a knock startled both of us. She froze. Oh God. It's Michael. Her ex-husband. Her voice dropped to a whisper. He still comes by sometimes. Just stay quiet. I didn't move. She opened the door halfway. Michael stood there, tall, graying, holding a small box. You forgot this, he said flatly. His eyes scanned past her shoulder, landing right on me. I saw the recognition flicker. Elena, he said slowly. You have company? She hesitated. Just my nephew. He was helping with the lock. Michael's jaw tightened. He nodded once, set the box down, and left without another word. The silence that followed was deafening. She shut the door gently, pressing her forehead against it. He thinks I'm pathetic, she whispered. Can't even move on without it looking wrong. I took a step closer. You don't owe him anything. Her eyes lifted to mine, wet, searching, breaking. You don't understand. I already feel like I crossed a line just asking you here. Then why did you? I asked, my voice low. She exhaled shakily, eyes flicking to my lips, then away. Because you make it hard to feel lonely. The space between us shrank again. For a heartbeat, the world held still. My hand lifted, half an inch from her face, when she suddenly stepped back. We can't, she whispered, almost to herself. But the way she looked at me said she already had. The days that followed blurred into each other, like time itself didn't know what to do with us. Elena stopped replying to my texts. I told myself it was better that way, that she was drawing boundaries. But every silence felt louder than any rejection could. By the third day, I drove past her house, telling myself it was coincidence, and saw her in the driveway, talking to Michael. He was leaning close, too close, smiling like he still owned her past. Something twisted in my chest. I hated the way he looked at her, like she was a memory he could still reopen. That night, I couldn't take it anymore. I showed up at her door, heart hammering. She opened it halfway, surprise flickering across her face. Arjun, what are you doing here? I needed to see you, I said too quickly. Her eyes softened and hardened all at once. You shouldn't be here. Then tell me to go. She didn't. She stepped aside. The house was dimly lit, warm in that quiet, suffocating way. She had a book open on the coffee table, but I could tell she hadn't been reading. Elena, I said carefully, why are you shutting me out? She turned away, folding her arms. Because this, whatever this is, can't go anywhere. You know that. I stepped closer. You keep saying that, but you don't act like it. Her shoulders tensed. You think this is easy for me? You think I want to feel like this? Her voice cracked. That was the first time I'd heard it break. I'm not some naive boy, I said quietly. Stop treating me like I don't understand. She turned to face me then, eyes fierce, vulnerable, alive. You don't understand. You don't know what it's like to be looked at and judged for something you can't even name. I don't care what they'd say, I said. I care about you. Her breath caught. She shook her head, stepping back. You're 24, Arjun. You'll forget this. You'll move on and laugh about it someday. Then why do you look at me like that? That stopped her. She didn't move, didn't blink. Don't, she whispered. But I was already closing the distance. The air between us electric, heavy, waiting. Her eyes darted from mine to my lips, and for the first time, she didn't look away. I shouldn't want this, she breathed, voice trembling. Then tell me you don't. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her hand lifted, hesitant, trembling, until her fingertips brushed the side of my face. Everything inside me stilled. For a second, the world was only her scent, her warmth, her silence that said more than words ever could. Then, a knock at the door. Her hand dropped. She stepped back fast, eyes wide. Stay here, she whispered, heart pounding. And just like that, everything we'd almost said hung in the air, waiting to shatter. It wasn't Michael at the door this time. It was my mother. She stood there, framed by the porch light, surprise flashing across her face as her eyes darted between us. Elena? I've been calling you. Why is Arjun's car outside? Elena froze. I could see her mask slide back on in real time. The practiced calm, the polite smile, the voice that hid too much. He was helping with the lock again, she said quickly. My mother looked at her, then at me. Her gaze lingered too long, heavy with suspicion. At this hour? No one spoke. She stepped inside, scanning the room. The open book, the two mugs on the table, the faint hum of music still playing from the speaker. Her expression changed. She didn't say it out loud, but she didn't need to. Elena, she said finally, we should talk. Elena's lips tightened. Of course. I stood frozen, hands in my pockets, pretending I didn't feel the ground tilt beneath me. My mother looked at me once more before walking toward the hallway. Arjun, go home. Elena didn't look up as I left, but I could see her shoulders trembling. The next day, my phone stayed silent. No calls, no texts, just that hollow, dragging feeling that something irreversible had happened. By evening, I couldn't take it. I drove back. Her car wasn't there. The porch light was off. A single note was wedged under the mat. I need time. Please don't come. I stood there for a long time, rereading those words until they blurred. A week passed. Then, one evening, she called. Can you meet me? Her voice was calm, but tired. Just once. When I found her, she was sitting in her car by the pier, hair tied back, eyes red, like she hadn't slept. She knows, she said before I could even speak. Your mother. She heard us that night. I didn't realize the door was still open. I sank into the passenger seat. What did she say? She told me I was destroying you, she whispered. That you'd never forgive me for this someday. She's wrong. Elena laughed quietly, a sound that cracked halfway. Maybe, but she's right about one thing. What's that? Her gaze met mine, raw, honest, stripped of all pretense. I can't be the reason you lose your family. The wind howled through the half-open window, carrying the smell of salt and rain. I don't care, I said. She shook her head. You will. One day you will. I reached for her hand, and for a second, she let me hold it. Then she pulled away, fast, like it burned. Her phone buzzed on the console. A text lit up the screen. Dinner tonight? Michael. She stared at it, silent. I wanted to ask if she was going back, but her tears answered before she could. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just distance anymore. It was an ending white rain the night I went to see her again. A slow, deliberate rain, the kind that soaks through everything before you even realize it. I didn't plan to go. My hands just turned the wheel, my heart steering me where logic wouldn't. Elena's porch light was still off, just like the first night. But this time, the door was already open. She was sitting inside, on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, staring at nothing. She didn't look surprised when she saw me, just tired. I told you not to come, she said softly. I know, I replied, closing the door behind me. But I had to. Her eyes flicked to me, searching for something. Anger? Regret? Hope? Maybe all three. Your mother came again, she said. She told me she's worried about you. I'm fine. No, she said firmly, shaking her head. You're not. Neither of us are. The thunder outside rolled like a warning. She stood, pacing, rubbing her arms as if to warm herself. You're too young to be tied to my mistakes, Arjun. You still have your whole life ahead of you. I stepped closer. And you think walking away fixes that? She stopped, back to me. It has to. I could feel the words building in my chest, the kind that can't stay buried anymore. You said once I make it hard for you to feel lonely, I said. What if that's the point? What if we're both tired of being lonely? She turned then, and the look in her eyes hit me like lightning. You think love erases the consequences? You think this, she gestured between us, trembling, won't follow you forever? I don't care what it costs, I said, my voice breaking. You're the only thing that's ever felt real. Her lip trembled, her composure crumbling in slow motion. You don't know what you're saying. I do, I said, stepping closer. You've spent so long hiding behind fear that you've forgotten what it feels like to be alive. The silence stretched, sharp and unbearable. Then she whispered, and what if I can't survive being alive again? The question hung between us like a confession. I didn't answer. I just reached out, slowly, my fingers brushing hers. She didn't move, didn't pull away this time. Her breath caught. The storm outside cracked, the light flickering once, like the house itself was holding its breath with us. Finally, she closed the distance, not with words, but with a trembling hand on my cheek. This isn't fair, she whispered. I know. Her eyes shimmered, full of everything we'd never said. But I can't lose you. You won't, I said. She leaned in, so close I could feel the warmth of her breath against my lips. And then she stopped. The sound of rain filled the silence. She pulled back just enough to whisper, then don't let me. And for the first time, neither of us ran. Hadn't chosen yet. Morning came slow, pale light slipping through the curtains like it was afraid to interrupt what the night had left behind. Elena was sitting by the window, wrapped in her blanket, a cup of untouched tea beside her. I was still there, still in the quiet aftermath of what almost happened, what couldn't be undone. Neither of us spoke for a long time. The air between us had changed, softer, but heavier too. She finally broke the silence. I didn't think you'd stay. I didn't plan to, I said, voice rough from no sleep. But leaving didn't feel right either. A faint smile tugged at her lips. You always say the right thing, even when you shouldn't. I sat across from her, elbows on my knees. Do you regret it? She stared out the window. I don't know, she whispered. Maybe regret and relief feel the same when you've wanted something too long. Outside, the rain had stopped. The world looked clean again, like it had forgiven us for a night that shouldn't have happened but did anyway. Elena, I said quietly, I don't want to be just a mistake you hide from. She turned then, really turned, her eyes red but steady. You're not a mistake. You're the first honest thing that's happened to me in years. Something in my chest eased and hurt all at once. She stood, walked to the shelf, and picked up a photograph. Her and my mother, smiling on a beach years ago. Your mother called me this morning, she said softly. She wants to forget what happened. Pretend nothing's changed. And you? I asked. She exhaled slowly, setting the frame down. I can't pretend, but I can't keep breaking rules either. It's not fair to anyone. Not to you. The words hung there, quiet but final. I nodded, even though every part of me wanted to fight it. So this is goodbye? Her eyes glistened. Maybe not forever. Maybe just until it stops feeling wrong. There was a stillness after that. Not empty, just peaceful. like the storm had taken everything it needed and left us standing in the calm. I walked to the door, pausing as I reached for the handle. You know, that night, when you asked me to drive you home, she smiled faintly. You should have said no. I don't think I ever could have. For a second, she looked at me the way she had that first night, the look that started everything. Except this time, it wasn't hunger or fear. It was gratitude. Take care of yourself, Arjun, she whispered. You too. I stepped outside. The air smelled like rain and endings. Behind me, I heard the door close softly, not like a goodbye, but a promise that maybe, someday, the world would let us start again. Broken heart, did you feel that too? If this story touched your heart, like, comment, and subscribe for more emotional love stories that blur the lines between right and real. Backhand index pointing down, tell me in the comments. Would you have walked away or stayed?